Hello and welcome to Business Reporter's Future of Insurance campaign. I'm Alistair Greener. Surveys show that customers of the 300-year-old insurance business are becoming increasingly promiscuous. Even advocates of a well-established brand tend to switch if they can find a better offering somewhere else. What they're after, in addition to a good price, is speed, simplicity and accessible insurers. Accordingly, the popularity of the direct-to-customer model and usage-based policies is on the rise. But is digital transformation only about introducing some user-friendly applications and tools? Well, this is what we're going to discuss with Peter Manchester, Global Insurance Advisory Leader and EMEA Insurance Leader at EY. Good morning.
Good morning, Alistair.
We hear a lot about cutting-edge technology affecting most industries, including insurance. But is the future of insurance about technology, or is it skills, or is it something else?
I think it's about all of those things. I think particularly three things. I think the sector itself is facing very significant vectors of change, most particularly the heart of it. The nature of risk is changing. Only probably about 10% of market risk is currently insured. If you look at the nature of liability, that's changing. So it's moving away from you and I as vehicle or device owners to the manufacturers with autonomous vehicles, fractional ownership of cars. I think at its heart, the whole customer experience is becoming more significant. Discussion is moving away from a very transactional relationship in insurance with the client to more of a conversational-based customer relationship model across all the sort of digital channels. So, digital connectivity and data across the ecosystem of insurers, brokers, reinsurers and clients is providing huge opportunities around efficiency and effectiveness. It's enabling organizations to look differently at the product sets and how they deliver those product sets. And thirdly, it's enabling them to look outside of their sector into broader global ecosystems around things such as travel, mobility, health, well-being, etc.
And can you give us some examples of how this technology can be leveraged to the benefit of the industry?
I think it differs by sub-segments. So in personal lines, with you and I buying a house insurance or a car insurance, what we tend to look for is a very automated, straight-through, low-touch digital process. It's much more about enabling that customer conversation across the channel of our choice rather than the channel of the insurer's choice. In commercial lines insurance, it segments between the SME end of the marketplace, which is very similar. It's blurring with personal lines, so again, very automated, very straight through. With more the more complex end of the commercial marketplace, which is more about individual underwriting, and it's much more about global risk transfer mechanisms, which require different aspects of technology.
What's in the way of some insurers actually embarking on this digitalization journey?
I think there are three things. So I think that all of the insurers are sort of realizing that to gain the benefits of the new investments in technology, they have to have a modern platform to base it on, to connect with and to enable. And at the moment, they live in a world potentially of different legacy systems. And the ability to knit those systems together is extremely hard across processes and customer journeys. So I think dealing with the legacy is an issue that all insurers face. I think the second is, what skills and capabilities do I require as an insurer going forward? And, where do I get them from? Do I hire them myself? Do I obtain them from third parties? Do I joint venture? Do I create partnerships with other insurers? I think, working through those skills and capabilities is important. And I think the third component is the whole investment profile. The world doesn't stand still. The need to invest is very significant, but equally, the need to create returns, profitable returns to shareholders is equally important. So how do I balance that tension of profitability?
And one of the things that will always be of concern of is it going wrong. So do you have any examples of where digitalization hasn't actually worked?
I think it's where organizations try and potentially digitize the legacy. So they look at their legacy processes and applications and say, what we'll do is we'll replicate that in a more slightly digitally and efficient way. I think that is where problems are caused and you can see the impacts of that. I think it's much more about redesigning the process, looking at it from the customer in, defining what experience you wish the customer to have and flowing that through the processes that support the organization.
We've been talking about these technological changes. How are those changes affecting stakeholders?
I think very significantly, and I think it's by different groupings. I think that we've talked a lot about the customer and the desire for the ability to move across channels of their choice for a frictionless experience and delightful experience. So I think, focusing on those is important. Equally as important, I think, is how the new digitization and some of the product sets and some of the enablers help increase both efficiency but also effectiveness of the insurance company. Thirdly, regulators, I think, are an interesting stakeholder. I mean, they're obviously looking at an industry which is investing very significantly in data analytics, predictive analytics, changing the way it prices, potentially the way it underwrites.
We've talked about technology a lot, and you've mentioned blockchain. Could you tell us how you at Ernst & Young, how you use that technology?
Yeah, so look, we've invested in creating Insurwave, which is a blockchain platform, particularly in the London market. Work very closely with a number of market entities, so not only the clients, which in this case was Maersk, but equally brokers such as Willis Towers Watson and a number of the insurers, to create what we see as a really a market utility, which effectively creates a platform against which you can establish smart contracts, which takes out a number of the frictional administration costs that exist within the current marine process and marine insurance process environment.
There's a lot for product developers, actuaries, underwriters, even brokers to adapt to. How do you suggest that they do adapt?
So firstly, if you through blockchain or through a number of the technologies we've talked about, if you have exposure data real time available to all of the parties, then effectively what is the requirement for an annual renewal? You'd move towards continuous contracts, real-time with real-time information. So that fundamentally changes the whole annual cycle of the marketplace. I think from an underwriting perspective, I think the proliferation of data and the availability of data now allows a much more granular and bespoke pricing and an underwriting capability. I think the third is, if we start to embed controls and pricing into contracts, on smart contracts, for example, then again, you move away from the need to constantly refer to paper-based information or individually held data, and again, a much more seamless experience. So I think each of these has the opportunity to fundamentally shift both the cost and the effectiveness profile of each of those areas of the marketplace.
And of course, the ability to adapt all comes down to a mindset. So I know that you help incumbent insurers with that process. Tell us a bit more about that.
I think, the mindset is one of digital first. I think you have to go from that mindset rather than replicating the past. As I mentioned earlier, it's about, creating again, what is, digitally first. I think a number of the organizations we work with are very focused. They recognize the threats in the marketplace. They understand the need to be more agile, more responsive, more digitally enabled. And they're investing quite heavily in innovation. Where I guess we're focused around working with clients on is not so much in producing, lots of PowerPoint or, some thought work, but it's really looking at the marketplace, understanding where the real change vectors are and working with the market to provide assets such as Insurwave, for example, where we believe there's a real market need and an opportunity to transform.
And one of the great aspects of technology is the amount of data that you're able to get hold of, which is huge. But how can you then actually use that data in a way that's going to be valuable for insurers and all the stakeholders?
I think claims is a good example. So if you look at the claims process today, it's long. It's probably the area of greatest impact on the customer. I think a lot of the things we've talked around, particularly around data and technology, give the opportunity to completely reimagine the claims process to an extent to which, most claims could be handled digitally. 60% of all claims could be handled once and done digitally. I think for the more complex claims, claims handlers with the benefit of artificial intelligence, digital dashboards can actually expedite claims and make decisions on claims much quicker. I think we're moving towards a more preventative rather than protective aspect of claims. So through the use of things such as leak bots, through sensors in cars, we can start working with customers and consumers to actually help prevent losses rather than just pay for losses.
What about the future? Where do you see the insurance industry in, say, 5-10 years' time?
I think there are a number of themes, some of which we've talked about. I think consolidation will continue at pace. We've seen it, I guess, most recently in the European market, but I think that consolidation will happen. So I think we will end up with, I guess, a more segmented insurance base with larger players, but then some very bespoke players focused on particular segments of the market. I think there's a sort of recognition that that platforms are important, and if you look forward, you could see the development of very clear ecosystems globally, whether that's around retail, travel, mobility. Insurers working together with other entities and joint ventures to create a much more of an integrated ecosystem. I think the question for insurers then is, where do you want to play? Do you want to actually own the ecosystem? Do you want to be a platform on it? Do you want to provide products into it? And I think those are some of the choices that they have.
And the reality is that this change is going to happen anyway, and we're going to see technology be involved so much more in the insurance industry like every other. So it's been great to find out more and really interesting to see a little bit into the future of the industry. Peter Manchester from Ernst & Young, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.